The Netflix limited series Made was released on the streaming platform on October 1st and has remained in the top 5 shows since it came out in many countries, not just here. And if you haven't watched it, it tackles domestic abuse, homelessness, and the crushing reality of poverty. Aaron Prochnow is joining us today from the YWCA of Cass Clay. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it yet, I encourage you to watch it. But we're going to talk a little bit about the series and then bring it back home to Fargo-Moorhead as well. So you watched the series over the weekend. It's called Made, M-A-I-D. What were your thoughts?
You know, after you called and said, hey, we want to talk about this. This is something that's happening on Netflix. It's trending. I'd heard earlier about Made because we'd received some contact from folks that support us and said, have you seen this? We've always helped you. We feel like we need to help you more. So your call, coupled with that, encouraged me to watch it, at least some of it over the weekend. And my thoughts are that that is what's depicted in the series is absolutely what happens every day in life for far too many women and some men across this country and around the world.
So the series, we're just showing not actual clips of the show, but you can see still in the top 5 trending. A lot of people are watching it. I felt like it was very eye-opening, and some of the terms that were used. It follows a young woman. She has a child, and her situation is called emotional domestic abuse or domestic violence. You kind of follow her whole process, and I feel like that was eye-opening to me, that there was a difference. Because I know, when she first went for help, she said, well, no, he hasn't hit me.
That happens every single day right here in our community, and oftentimes women who come to our doors at YWCA come there terrified and scared of what's coming next, but also feel as though they're not a victim or a survivor of abuse because they've not been physically assaulted. And our answer, similar to what the person in the show Made that worked at the domestic violence shelter indicated, is that we absolutely are here for you. We believe you, and we're here to support you. And you are a survivor of violence, even though that person didn't physically lay their hands on you. The amount of emotional abuse that took place was significant there, as it is locally oftentimes. And we were talking a little bit before we went on. One of the things that I noticed is that we often see people even more terrified to walk out the door than she was, or more scared of their abuser than what she was. How she was depicted in the show anyhow.
Even though I start with that a lot of people don't understand emotional domestic violence, and that a lot of people don't understand it, and it was part of the storyline was it's hard to prove. On the other hand, the DV shelter people were like, absolutely, just like you said. So the help is there, the support is there, people understand what it is. As far as the reality of throughout the show, like, getting out, she escapes, but then she goes back. Even a friend goes back. Is that real life?
Absolutely, and the worker in the show indicated the average is 7 times, which is an accurate statistic. And so what they said in the show was accurate. The other piece that I felt was accurate were some of the barriers that Alex, the character in the show, faced. Those to childcare. And being able to have adequate childcare for her daughter while she went and attempted to get a job, got a job, and then her trying to maintain that job when her child got sick. But in addition to that, some of the transportation barriers that Alex faced with her car, having a car accident, not having a reliable car, and then having a friend help provide her with a car. Between transportation, childcare, sometimes loss of job, or inability to get a job because you don't have childcare first. When Alex described in Made, and for those who've seen it, when she described, well, how can I get a job if I don't have childcare? And if I don't have childcare, how am I supposed to go get a job? And so how can this work together is a very real component of what those we serve face each and every day.
In the series as well, you see her bank account in the top corner, and poverty, some people, it's hard to understand what level is poverty, but not having a lot of money, that's something that is a huge issue in the control with domestic violence as well.
No question about it. Over 95% of the time in domestic violence instances, there's also financial abuse taking place.
Would you recommend people watch this?
I think it really depends. You know, you and I had talked last week about it a little bit, and so I sort of forced myself to watch it. I would tell you, as a person who works in this field each and every day, oftentimes I want my downtime to be more leisurely, if you will, and not live in that work environment and have some degree of separation from my work life and my home life. But it's also part of my job, and so I did that. I think it's always good, though, for others who don't do the work that I, along with an amazing team of about 45 people here locally that work at YWCA, and our sisterhood across the United States as the largest provider of domestic violence service in the country collectively. We're always encouraging folks to learn more and to advocate for those who are survivors of violence. And so I absolutely would encourage those to watch, because many of the barriers that this young woman face are barriers that women and their children face right here in our community.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Erin's going to tell you a shocking statistic, just how many domestic violence calls came in yesterday here in Fargo-Moorhead. Don't go anywhere.